Hello, friends. This is Tillery Timmons-Sims again, coming to you from the headquarters of Jackalope Creative, where we record our podcast, Conservation Stories, that is sponsored by the Sand Hill Area Research Association. And as you know, Sarah, as we like to call it, is interested in all things ecosystems, and part of our ecosystems is the things that are flying around in space. And so you know that we have some work that we've done with NASA, and today I brought a couple of remote sensing folks that I met in Colorado at the NASA Acres meeting. There's some of the researchers that participate in that program. And I would like to introduce you to Tony and Nick. Nick, would you like to give us a little info about yourself and your background?
Thanks, Tillery, and thanks, Sarah, for having Tony and I here today. We're excited to talk to you about remote sensing. My name's Nick Young. I'm a research associate at the Natural Resource Ecology Lab, which is at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado. And I've been working here in that capacity for about 10 years now.
Beautiful part of the world.
Sure is, especially this time of year.
Oh, I bet it is. It is. Tony, how about you? Give us a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Tillery. My name is Tony Vorster. I'm a research scientist at the CSU Natural Resource Ecology Lab. The same place that Nick works. We collaborate a lot together, and we've spent the last, as Nick said, probably 10 plus years working together on all sorts of different remote sensing projects. And in many ways, we've kind of taught ourselves how to use remote sensing over time, and with that, I think have developed an understanding of its capabilities, but also had a lot of hard lessons along the way of what it can't do. And so I think hopefully that's something that we can get into today. Is what are its promises, and also what are some of its limitations.
Yeah.
So the Natural Resource Ecology Laboratory is a research department. So we spend all of our time pretty much doing research. And that puts us, Nick and I especially spend a lot of time developing research for end users. So as ecologists, we're pretty far on the applied end of the spectrum of making things that can actually be, that hopefully have utility for people on the ground. And one program that we've done that through is the NASA Develop program. It's given us dozens and dozens of iterations of this process of taking remote sensing, getting it to a place where it's useful for somebody on the ground, and kind of communicating all the caveats that go along with it.
That's interesting. I think that's an important thing to remember about a lot of projects. People seem to think sometimes, I think we think that unless it's 100% like, oh, we got the answer we wanted, then to me, if you start out knowing like you only want one answer, you're limiting, progress, because a no is as good as a yes. In research, you want to be able to know what those limitations are. And people ask me a lot, because I'm constantly like talking to people about NASA Acres, and of course the Develop program and those things. And people are like, well, what can it do? What is remote sensing, and what can it do? And I think that's like maybe a basic question, to a refresher for people that maybe are listening in on this one and haven't heard, some past, like we've had Alyssa Whitcraft on before. But once you give us a little bit of background in layman's terms, like what it is, and some things that maybe everyday people might not recognize that remote sensing is impacting their lives.
Remote sensing from a very basic standpoint is basically measuring things remotely, right? And that can mean all sorts of things. And so that's taking a picture of something, or perhaps setting a signal to measure what material might be there. And the way that Tony and I have been thinking about it is often how remote sensing can provide information of the landscape. And so remote sensing has the ability to look at a single point in time, or look across time by taking multiple photos of the same place over time as it changes through various disturbances or management practices. There's some key characteristics that we like to highlight with remote sensing. when you take a picture of something, you're going to have what we call a spatial resolution. So when you look at that photo and you look at the most granular pixel of that photo, how much area does that represent on the ground? And that's called like the spatial resolution. And sometimes it can be pretty high resolution, like less than a foot, to much larger resolutions, to like multiple feet, to even like the size of a football field. It could be 1 pixel. And that just depends on the type of sensor and what the sensor is trying to capture. Another important characteristic is the temporal resolution. And with that, there's 2 things. First is, how far back in time do we have photos for that particular sensor? So has this satellite been taking photos for 1 year, or is it something like the Landsat legacy, been taking photos for over like about 4 decades now, which is a really long time to be looking at the Earth. And so that's the history of that sensor. And then another important component of the temporal resolution is, how often do we get a new photo? So is this a satellite that takes a photo once a year, or a program that takes a photo like once a year, like the NAPE program, National Agricultural Inventory Program, I believe it's called. And that takes a photo about once a year or once every other year, right in the middle of the growing season, to provide a snapshot, versus something like a Landsat program, which would take a picture like every half month or so. So you get a lot more frequency, and you can kind of look at the change in seasons over time. And then lastly, there's the radiometric resolution. And this is kind of a technical term for how many different things can we see with that remote sensing sensor. So we see a lot of, with the way we see the world, we see red, green, and blue wavelengths. But through these sensors, we can see far more than that. We can see up to 7 or sometimes hundreds of different spectrums of the electromagnetic spectrum to help inform us of what might be going on in that given picture.
I remember at Commodity Classic, they were making those little, where you could see, kids could see radio, what are they called? Radio wave, like, where they can look at plants and see those lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. And teaching kids how to go home and make those themselves, from just some regular stuff you might have around the house, and showing them like, this is what satellites are seeing. Of course, I was like probably more impressed than the kids were.
Another part of your question there, I think, was also like, how is remote sensing used in ways that we might not even realize? And you think about the weather forecast that's relying a lot of remote sensing data, topographic information. So all of the any topographic map, or areas mapping flood zones for insurance evaluations. Right? All these things are based on remote sensing. Even though that simple aerial photo of your land from the 1950s that provides you really valuable snapshot of the past. That's all remote sensing. Most of these products are free and available to the public. That's oftentimes something somebody asks, like, well, how much does that cost? And well, for the majority of these products, they're free. There are more and more private satellites that you do have to pay for access for, but you can do a lot with the freely available stuff.
And I think that's what I love about NASA Acres is it's taking something our tax dollars have paid for and said, how do we make it accessible to the average farmer? How can it benefit you? What can we create that would benefit you? And how can we make what we have right now beneficial to you? And that's what I know you mentioned earlier, that like what you're doing is this applied research, which means I can take what you're doing and I can actually use it. It's not stuck away in a lab somewhere that isn't benefiting people. People are able to really take and benefit from it. And I think that is another important thing for people to understand about our science division of NASA, is how valuable it is to us in what we can learn about our when I say environment, about like where we live, the planet that we live on, and it is, NASA's, it's great. We're obviously going to go back to the moon again, but that, I think the thing that was so maybe unexpected was the amount of data that we could gather about the place that we live.
Another angle of the applied research and of NASA acres work that you're talking about is that it depends on that relationship with the people on the ground. It's not a university enterprise that just develops these products and then post them online. It's a conversation off the bat with people on the ground to understand what is needed. Why aren't the current things working for you? How can we do it better? And without that knowledge on the ground, it's that engagement, it's really doomed from the start.
Right. And I think that's so important for farmers to realize, hey, here's an opportunity for you to really impact how your tax dollars are being utilized in the development of tools that you have already paid for. Like those things are already there, and you have an opportunity to have this research on your farm. What do you need done? And how can we work together collaboratively to develop things that can be applied on your farm? It's great. It's a great program. NASA Acres will be here, the researchers, and then also the director of the Earth Science Division, Karen St. Germain, will be in the Lubbock area that first, starting the 5th of October, and we'll be doing 3 days of tours. And they are, have emphasized to me over and over again as we plan this out that they are here to learn and listen for problems that they know that they could help with, that the technology is already there. And that's what I, have said before, like this, you're asking me to give you like, hey, what problems do you have? And I'm like, I don't know. You're wanting me to make a cake and I need the ingredients. To me, perfect description of like, we don't really understand even what to ask for because we don't even know what we don't know. And that's what the whole idea of developing relationships with across that whole group of people, researchers, farmers, and NASA employees. It's like getting those relationships really developed helps to build trust so that farmers know that this is someone that really does care, that really can bring solutions.
And going back to, your comment on, taxpayers have been paying for some of these products and we oftentimes don't even know what's available. I think even from a researcher standpoint, Tony and I also, even in the field didn't quite have a great understanding for all the different products that are out there. And one of our initiatives recently, in partnership with the Meridian Institute, was to do a quick little survey of the landscape of what is out there that would be something that could be useful for rangeland management. And so Tony and I did a bunch of research and reviewing of what's out there and developed this table of existing products that could be useful to rangeland managers. And we broke up all the different products that are out there based on different categories, from like vegetation production, where you might find helpful remote sensing tools to help inform what production you might expect this year, given the current climatic forecasts and where you exist on the landscape. And so we developed this table to categorize in different thematic areas so folks could find key areas, and then provided some recommendations on different applications, from planning your grazing strategy to understanding your risk with floods or fire, or even just being able to view your landscape over time to understand how it might have changed with different management or disturbances over the years. A good example of something that does that quite well, that actually we found accessible to a lot of folks, is Google Earth Pro. So a lot of folks out there might be familiar with Google Earth Pro. It's this wonderful little software program that's free. You can download it on your desktop, and you can view the entire Earth kind of like in a Google Maps kind of framework, and go to your landscape and see pretty high resolution imagery of your property that you're interested in, and to a detail to allow you to make decisions or learn more about that landscape that you might not be able to get when you're on the ground in your day-to-day life. And you can look back in time with that software. You can measure area.
Really? Okay.
And you can kind of look at the terrain in a 3D perspective. It provides a lot of capabilities for more basic uses to somewhat more advanced uses, but it's a good example of
Didn't
some
know
of the
about that.
some of the different products out there that were available, and we felt the need to kind of put those together and describe those in a place that might be accessible to folks that might see it as benefiting their operations.
Oh, it's great to know. I'm already like thinking in my mind's thinking about, I wonder if someone knows about this. So is that information publicly available? Do you guys have that somewhere that people can go and see a list of those things?
We, Tony and I, produced a report based on that initiative,
Okay.
and in that report, we outlined a lot of great stuff on remote sensing, its capabilities and limitations, and also have that table in there so folks can reference that.
That's great. Is that something that we can link in the show notes?
Sure can. Yep, absolutely.
That would be awesome. That would be great. Hello, friends. I'm here to tell you about an upcoming event, and I've asked Katie Lewis with the Texas A&M AgriLife Research Station to give us a little information about her event on September 24th.
Yes, we're having an event to discuss resilient cropping systems that will be displaying all the research that we're conducting across the High Plains, specifically focused on resilient agriculture.
That's awesome. So where should people go if they want to participate?
So if they want to participate, you can visit AgriLife today. They have it on their calendar. You can get to the registration site. If you want to just show up, we'll be at Quarterway Gin at 8 a.m. on September 24th.
Okay, that's great. And we'll have the information either in the show notes, or if you're seeing this on socials, we'll have it there in the comments as well. So thanks, Katie.
Thank
September
you.
24th.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Hope to see y'all.
What are you finding as far as you guys, I know, have done a lot of rangeland management. What are you finding that's the most helpful?
One of the first things a rancher wants to know is how much grass they have, how much feed they have. So that's one of the most valuable things.
Mm-hmm.
And there has been a lot of progress in providing that information. But I think this is a good example of some of the opportunities, but some of the caveats and challenges. So for example, a rancher might want to know how much biomass they have on hand, right? And a scientist might say, oh yeah, we have that. Go to this website and, it's mapped for the past 30 years, but they're kind of talking past each other. So for one, a lot of these types of products are providing the production. So what is the potential production for that site? Not necessarily how much biomass is there right now. So it might not account for a previous round of grazing through that pasture. It's not available real time. So a rancher might want to know right now, what do I have? And it's like, well, we can tell you what you had last year. We can't yet tell you what you have right now. So those are just some of, it's just a little microcosm of some of the examples.
Right.
Yeah, the technology can do that, but it's maybe not quite as useful as a rancher would want it to be. And there are advances being made there of mapping in more real time and looking at the biomass is actually there, not the potential production for a spot.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so I know that like about 6 weeks ago, maybe or so, NASA launched another satellite, and that one will be coming around more often. Is it every 2 weeks?
To be honest, I'm not sure what.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the satellite that you're talking about. A lot of their satellites do, like some of their workhorses, like Landsat, for example, pass over every 2 weeks. So that's certainly possible. Another is looking at, I think that Nick brought up a good one of just looking at landscape change over time. All sorts of light bulbs start going off once you start to look at what your land looked like in the 50s again, and saying, oh, holy cow, that random pattern out there that I've been seeing for years that I didn't know where it came from. Now I see, right? It was tilled, back in the 50s, and I can see the impacts today. So some of those just simple things like have a lot of value.
Something that's impacted Texas recently is, that NASA's done work. In particular, the Acres group has done work on the fires, like trying to understand like the impact on that, and over, a more holistic look, not just, just not just the pictures of what happened or the changes in the landscape, but then also too in the flooding. That's another area. So there's some, just immediate. So just by the way, this is the NASA ISRO satellite.
Nick, another name, it goes by NISAR as well. So that's
That's it. NISAR. Yeah. So right. So this is the new satellite, and this is a little bit of what we were discussing. Though it has the capabilities to test the soil moisture, which I'm understanding that's at the root level. Like that's how far down it's going to go. Disease, pest, water stress, flood mapping, damage assessment of crops, and it will return to the same spot every 12 days. And it'll have a resolution of 97 to 1,000 square feet. So that's the church size. That's pretty amazing.
Mhm.
And it'll have 40 to 450 data points per acre. That is a lot
Wow.
of information.
It is.
That's a lot of information. And that's one of the things I wondered too. Can you tell when you're looking at if that is going to like improve, like not only just like I can now see every 12 days how much biomass I have out there, but also maybe be able to tell some kind of quality reading, because I know it can tell quality, right, of like corn and crops like that. So do you think that'll be helpful to have that extra?
Yeah, extra data is really helpful, because you also have to think about these different sensors start to be additive to, right? They complement each other. So
Mhm.
you don't just have to use one sensor, especially with all this machine learning advancements and things, you can use information from many different sensors. And so like that NISAR satellite might be really good at telling you about
Right.
the moisture characteristics, whereas another sensor might be really great at telling you the green up timing and the phenology of your land, and you can start to bring those things
Wow.
together to do more. So
That's amazing.
it is very powerful. We are used to working in the Rocky Mountain regions in the western U.S.
Yes.
With ranchers and on rangelands, working with farmers and in like in some of the more agricultural
Row
settings
crops.
around
Mhm.
Lubbock. That's not our wheelhouse. So a lot of things you can probably tell, your listeners can probably tell that all the examples we're drawing on are more
Sure. Well,
grassland.
something though that's happening here is that a lot of people are going back to grass here, because as we are running out of groundwater, we're seeing that conversion back to, if they're not doing it this year, they're planning and they know they're going to be doing it within the next 5 years, and so there's we're steadily moving towards what you guys are studying right now, and having those things available, like, if we're able to start thinking about right now the places where there already is grassland and the people have already converted back, to be able to use that to figure out, good, production methods or things that people can do that will help increase their yields on these, dry land grass areas, and I'm going to assume that some people will, take what little water they have remaining and put it in, maybe under the pivot and get that grass up and going. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like. So I'm just completely ignorant of all that stuff, but it is pertinent to us in a way that you may not recognize or may not know.
So you mentioned like what's pertinent to a farmer or rancher, and that's something that we've been after too, is really understanding what's a value added product, because there's so many products out there. They all have their applications and their utility, but truly when you go out and start talking to ranchers, is that remote sensing is underutilized. And that's not, I'm not saying that as a comment about the ranchers. It's more a comment on, I think we as a research community haven't really made the right products that are worth their weight, right? Like the measure of adoption the measure of success is going to be that these products have enough value to warrant somebody incorporating it into their decision making. It's not going to make the decisions for them, but it's another tool to that they can draw on to
Mhm.
make their decisions.
Mhm.
And one of those areas that looks promising is one that you brought up is, can you map the quality of that vegetation, the protein content, or
Mhm.
whatever attribute you're after. And I think that if we could do that well, there's case studies of that being done, but if we could do that well and consistently and deliver it, right, that's something that's now
Mhm.
has value to probably stand on its own, and to
Mhm.
be enough interest that a rancher is gonna might start folding in that information into their decision making. We've been trialing some of this, so part of the structure of some of our research projects is we just kind of start open-ended with a rancher and just have conversations, build that
Mhm.
relationship, and go back and forth on, like, what if we tried this? And we can
Right.
make a product, make a tool. They can give it a test run and see if it's going well, and then come back to us, and we can iterate until it gets
Right.
useful. We've been going through that process with a ranch in Northwest Colorado, the Camblin Ranch, and they have virtual fencing and are also interested in integrating remote sensing into their management.
Sure.
And so, one thing we did this year is, all right, can we take the real-time condition of their vegetation and the flexibility that virtual fencing provides, and start to design their rotations and their
Oh, wow.
pastures around that vegetation condition. Let's ensure that each pasture we give the livestock is going to have that the forage needed, have the
Mhm.
diversity, so that the animals
Mhm.
select what they need, and
Right.
maintain their gains. And so that, I think that's not
Yes.
necessarily a widespread use just yet, but it's
Mhm.
one
Well,
that's being developed, and I think in
yes.
the near future it could be more of a widespread use.
And part of the reason why, it's underutilized is because there's not a good way for them to access this. I mean, like, they're not remote scientists and don't know how to get on NASA's website and read what all's there. And so what I hear you saying is that you're creating a tool that is easily accessible for them to be able to, it like, you do not have to have a degree in remote sensing in order to understand and gather the information that you're wanting. Yes, and
Right,
and it's
and
NASA data. Is that correct?
it's mainly NASA data,
Mhm.
but not exclusively.
Yeah.
There's other satellites, like from the European
Satellites.
Space Agency, that are
Mhm.
valuable, or
Yeah.
the NATE program that Nick mentioned, or
Mhm.
there's other sources.
Yeah.
NASA's one of the
Mhm.
main providers, but not all of them.
Yeah.
You brought up the accessibility issue, and that is a
Mhm.
big challenge. Luckily, I think the field has come a long way in recent
Mhm.
years of developing these websites and platforms that are actually pretty easy for somebody just to open a web page, zoom into their area, draw
Mhm.
something on the screen, and get information. The Rangeland Analysis Platform is a good example of that. It's a pretty intuitive website. You don't need to be a remote sensing scientist to access it at all. And so
And
they're
it's called the
Rangeland Analysis Platform,
Rangeland Analysis Platform.
or
Okay.
RAP for short.
Okay.
And there's a few examples of products like that now that
Mhm.
are
Mhm. Mhm.
the researchers, agencies are trying to get over that hurdle, and they've been making
Yes.
really great progress.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
a challenge that's being addressed, but it's always one that we need to
Mhm.
keep
Yeah.
improving.
Hey friends, I'm excited to tell you about NASA. NASA Acres, which is part of the Earth Science Division of NASA, is coming to our area. They're coming here because they want to learn about how we farm, and they want to see if there's ways that they can help us. So NASA Acres is a project that we've been partnering with for several months now, and they will be here for Ag Tours October the 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we will be in Terry County. We will be heading then up to Crest and over to Morton. We're going to be in a lot of different places. We're going to put that agenda up on our website on the homepage so you can see where we are. And if you want to come by and just see what NASA, what do they have to do with agriculture? We would love for you to meet these folks. They want to meet you. They want to talk about maybe how you can participate and have remote sensing information available for your farm. This is a farmer-led effort. So if you're an ag business, or if you're a farmer, come out and just kick the tires on what it might be like to partner with NASA on an ag project. One of the things I hear consistently is that, everything is siloed. My John Deere data is siloed over here, and then this data is siloed over here, and they're not crossing over. Or maybe I can import stuff into John Deere, but everything I'm looking at, I'm paying to access my own information.
Mm-hmm.
As it's part of I think the struggle for a lot of people, and in some cases it can be very expensive. And so I wonder if that's part of the, maybe people, tried something 10 years ago and it wasn't worth the cost, and so they have never gone back and tried anything new. But it sounds like there's new tools that are, being developed that use that capability and make it accessible to farmers, to ranchers, and hopefully in a more affordable platform. But still, getting all of this together in one area, all of their data, would be really helpful to them.
That touches on a good point that we've been hearing from different producers that have, dabbled in remote sensing is, remote sensing, usually the products are fairly specific to a specific measurement. Say, like as Tony mentioned, biomass production, whereas another one might be, weather, or another product might be imagery. And there's been some recognition of this, but that is definitely a limitation. Is it's hard to find where a lot of these different products can come together in one easy to access and understand and interactive tool to help inform those decisions. I think there's some good examples of people trying to do that, but these are still kind of being tested, are often more regionally based, because one region of the United States might have more specific needs than another region, and might need to pull different remote sensing products to help inform that. And so I do think there's a recognized need to kind of bring these things together to help inform decisions a little bit more streamlined. But we're not quite there yet. And I think that is one of the missions of NASA Acres, is to figure out, what is the best way to get this information to the producers. And so there's some folks working on that now.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about develop. Give us a little bit about what the goals, what is the purpose of develop, and then we'll talk about some past projects that you've done, and then let's talk about what we're going to do here on the High Plains.
So develop is a program out of NASA that really has two main goals. One is to develop the skill sets of people who want to be able to use remote sensing. So early career folks who want to learn about remote sensing analysis, GIS analysis. It also teaches them about doing science in general, working in a team, connecting, talking with end users, and meeting, doing applied science. So there's that's one of the goals, is building the skills of the
workforce,
the participants, the workforce development. The other goal is to provide remote sensing capabilities for end users. So how can remote sensing be used to inform decisions, or land management decisions, or inform policymakers? And so each project is 10 weeks, and there's a team of 4 participants. Think of it like a paid internship program. That team of 4 tackles an end user need for that 10 weeks. It's just enough time to do a good way to think of it is like a feasibility study. Is this possible? And gets really good momentum on a project. These projects touch on agriculture. They touch on things like wildfire, things like
Just about anything.
ecological forecasting, all sorts of things.
Okay. Tell us about what we're going to try to accomplish in 10 weeks.
Yeah, coming up here with you, Tillery, shortly, and other partners like USGS and the USDA,
Bamert Seed.
Bamert Seed, and
Mm-hmm.
Understanding Ag, and
Yes.
the USDA Agricultural Research Service. We are going to be improving cover cropping mapping for your region in West Texas. So the focus will be taking some cover cropping methods that have been developed in other parts of the U.S., applying them to your area,
Mm-hmm.
and tweaking them. How can we, how accurate is it in West Texas? What do we need to change about those methods to do it better?
Yeah.
That'll be the focus.
So, it's easy to know, I mean, I can think off, in my mind, like, okay, here's locations I know where people have done cover crops, but you need to engage these farmers in some other information as well, not just to look at a picture from, a satellite. There's some information that it would be necessary to be provided from the ground up. Can you give us a little bit of what that would be? What kind of information you'd be asking from a farmer? Because we were discussing, we recruit a farmer into participating, and we'll send them maybe a short Google form, but also, and we'll cover this in just a second, but the information of their data, because that's a whole nother discussion. So what kind of questions are you looking for answers from folks that have spent time in cover crops?
So to pull off this project, we need to know if what we're mapping from the satellites is true, accurately mapping what's been cover cropped, and that's where knowledge of partners like yourself and farmers is critical. So basically, we need points that we know were cover crop, points that we know were not cover cropped, so that we can communicate how accurate the model is, because none of these products are perfect. They're going to have uncertainty with them,
right?
And also to improve, to go back and improve the methods and be sure that we're mapping it more accurately. Field locations, and if they were cover cropped, what species were used to cover crop, and how how the cover crop is terminated and when, things like that.
Hi friends, here on the High Plains, we have got a chance to work with NASA's Develop project. The focus is cover crops, using satellite tools to identify things like when they were planted and how they're managed, and how can we build real research to see what value they bring or maybe they don't bring. So if you're a farmer, you're planting cover crops, we'd love your help. A short form will be sent to you with some basic information like your planting date, termination date, maybe the years that you had cover crops. Your information is going to stay protected, but it'll make a really big difference in showing what cover crops are really worth having in our region. If you want more information, want to be part of this, you can visit sarah-conservation.com. We'll have some information there. And you can also reach out to me at contact@sarah-conservation.com, and I would be happy to put your name on the list. Thank you very much. So a lot of folks here might not think that they're cover cropping, but they're technically FSA would consider like the stubble that's left from a grain sorghum field would be considered cover crop, or what's left after your wheat, if you're planting into that. Anything you're planting into, I don't think cotton stalks count, but I think they count those other things. So, for people that might be listening or might be interested, but thinking I don't cover crop, well, those things actually, FSA considers them to be a cover crop. And so I foresee like some of this information being helpful for farmers that are wanting to participate in certain programs, with FSA. And if that data is already available, It'd be really nice if, farmers can, if I need to verify anything, it's right there. That information is right there. So we know, because it's really hard to tell, for me, when I'm looking on things, I'm like, I mean, I know this person cover crops, but I don't know what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? You guys know more what you're looking at and are getting a closer view of those things. So this is really about starting the process that would lead to something that would be beneficial. And the data that we're talking about that farmers have is the date of the cover crop. That's the point of data. What date did you terminate it? And are there, I mean, is that pretty much, or how many years, what years did you have cover crops on a certain field? So it's, those are the type of data points that we're talking about. But one of the things I appreciate about Acres is the emphasis that they put on the fact that information that a farmer is providing us belongs to them. That is their data and it belongs to them. And they have the right to say how what belongs to them is utilized.
Absolutely. And a clear understanding of what the data is being used for. In this case, development of cover cropping methods, right? Or cover crop mapping methods. We're not, these developed projects are, like I mentioned, 10 weeks. We're going to test this. Hopefully we get really far, but it's possible that, in 10 weeks we discover just the issues and, we're not necessarily getting to a point where it's going to be a repeated cover cropping, mapping of cover crops every year for the region. That would take, more time and resources and things. So anyway, yeah, it's along with the data, it's using that data responsibly, respecting that it is the farmer's data and just being really clear about how it's being used.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, just I want people to know that when they're, thinking about, if they're thinking about, joining us in this research, it's not going to take much out of them at all. Doesn't take much effort, but it can contribute to something that we can find a yes or a no on. And if you find a yes on it, you're developing things that could be pretty much, in just a few years ahead, they're going to be helpful, and if you're finding no's, you got to figure out why you're finding those no's and how you get past those obstacles in order to go ahead and acquire this information that would be helpful to farmers, and so are you looking at like comparing things? Are there points of data that you're hoping to collect, or are you simply looking at how do we create the map? How do we identify?
We're starting with that basic step. How well can we identify? How well can we map this? And we're looking at going back to about 2018 to up to present. If we can do that, I think that would be really successful.
Yes, I think so.
And that can be the jumping off point for other things like looking at evapotranspiration in these fields or trends over time or other questions that the farmers might have. But first we just want to start with let's map it, and that will unlock future research.
One of the great things about NASA Develop is it's 10 weeks, which actually goes by pretty quick. And I know farmers might be, rightly so, reluctant to share data, but what's nice is at the end of those 10 weeks, the team presents what they've learned, and it's public and there's an invite. And so anyone who's interested, it's a great opportunity to see, okay, I shared some data. What came of that? And so they get to go and see how it's used and what they came of that. And it's kind of a nice way to connect to that research, because sometimes data is shared, and if it goes into academia, it can be years before something comes out. And this is nice because it's a pretty short timeline to kind of see how those data are used. That's
awesome. Yeah, that's great. And but you're not going to be like, so-and-so's field was terminated on so-and-so date.
Right. Yeah.
And this, it's all of this information all gets put together, and then, so it's not going to be like they're going to be calling somebody's name out or pointing out to a certain field or something. So that's important for people.
Yeah, that's important too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and these 10, like Nick mentioned, these 10 weeks goes fast, but some examples of other projects that, just 10 weeks are, we've mapped like cheatgrass, invasive annual grass that causes problems here in the
Oh, wow. Yes. Okay.
Across the Western U.S. where it's been mapped, and then that's been used for to target treatments. So just like in these 10-week cycles, really helpful products can come out, or other NASA developed projects that have been conducted or have looked at, again, in the short time frame, pastures with different grazing management and how that's impacted trends in bare ground over the last 40 years. So really, these interns, they're learning along the way.
Right.
They have great experience, but they get a lot done. So.
Yeah. So it really is a great job development tool. And I mean, like companies, these folks can leave in 10 weeks and really have skills that companies will find valuable. That's just a really great thing. And you're actually doing something that is actually can become something that's applicable within 10 weeks. That's amazing.
Yeah.
These there's some of these projects are virtual too, so people can participate in them from anywhere. So we get, while we're here sitting in Fort Collins, Colorado, we can have people from the communities where the work is being done, build their skills and have that on the ground perspective. And we've been doing this program for 13 plus years, and
wow.
So there's there's hundreds and hundreds of participants, and they're in all sorts of
that's amazing.
Exciting places now. From,
that's amazing.
Nonprofit world to private industry. Agencies.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited that we get to participate in. Rob Cook with Bamert Seed is one of our partners and is going to be participating in some of these meetings as well. And we really appreciate Bamert Seed and their involvement, giving their time to be part of making this happen for us. It's really exciting. And I appreciate you guys giving us your time. I thank you so much for what you're doing, the work you're doing. I'm so excited that we got to meet in Colorado. And I'm sorry we won't see you guys in October.
Yeah, I'm bummed about
that. Won't be able to come, but hopefully we will see you at the next Acres meeting, which won't be too long from now.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us, Tillery. It's been fun, and I think what you do of kind of bridging all these different parties and making things happen is really great.
Yeah.
So
well, I do like to find interesting people. So, and friends, thank you for joining us for this episode of Conservation Stories. And I look forward to seeing you again next time.